It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. In every circle you move through, invisible lines separate allies from threats, and your survival depends on recognizing these boundaries before they are crossed. Every interaction is a battlefield. Every word exchanged can be a sword or a shield. The manipulator creeps like a predator at the edges of conversation, studying weaknesses, noting patterns, and striking where caution has lapsed. Do not mistake charm for loyalty, for those who bend the rules for their gain will erode your influence quietly. Maintain mental vigilance as if defending a fortress. The weak-willed follower, by contrast, is a liability hidden behind compliance. They fail under pressure, crumble when tested, and can inadvertently reveal your strategies to adversaries. Their loyalty is conditional, shifting with convenience or fear, and their presence in your ranks can topple plans that require steadfastness. Train yourself to discern hesitation, inconsistency, and excuses as signs that authority and guidance may not be reliably supported. The envy-driven saboteur lurks in plain sight, cloaked in applause and agreement while cultivating resentment. Their power is subtle, expressed in undermining comments, passive resistance, and quiet obstruction. Like a wolf among sheep, their intent is to disrupt quietly, and ignoring early signs allows their influence to metastasize. Recognize the psychological cost of error. Misplaced trust saps energy, misaligned expectations breed frustration, and failure to act invites repeated offense. In a meeting, if a colleague subtly challenges a decision without foundation, observe their pattern before reacting. Respond with calm authority, restating objectives with clarity and silence, any escalation with composure. Treat every encounter as an opportunity to practice discernment, see beyond appearances, anticipate motives, and establish boundaries that preserve your freedom and influence. Immediate recognition is your shield. Watch for shifts in tone, inconsistency between words and actions, and subtle attempts to control the narrative. Each observation is a chess move, positioning you to respond rather than react. The battlefield within is as crucial as any external conflict. The throne of your mind must remain unassailable. Guard it with the discipline of a seasoned commander. Do not allow charm, convenience, or proximity to erode your judgment. Call every action to account and maintain clarity in alliances, for misjudgment carries the cost of betrayal, wasted effort, and weakened authority. Embed vigilance into daily routines, review interactions, reflect on behavioral patterns, and adjust strategies accordingly. Accept that danger may arise where it is least expected, and act with foresight to neutralize risk before it escalates. Stand firm in observation, speak with measured authority, and let restraint be your armor against hidden threats. When boundaries are tested, respond decisively but without anger, using calm power to reassert control and maintain the integrity of your position. View each relationship as a strategic engagement. Only through clear assessment and disciplined action can influence be preserved and growth secured. Internalize the principle that mastery over interactions protects both self and ambitions. End each day reinforcing this vigilance, allowing no compromise of judgment or authority. Repeat silently as a mantra to center focus and fortify resolve. I see all, I endure, I am untouchable. Your mind is the throne from which all power radiates, and every thought unguarded is a breach in your fortress. Treat it as a citadel under constant threat. For those who seek to manipulate, distract, or undermine, you are ever present, often hidden behind smiles, polite conversation, or false allegiance. Fortify mental boundaries as a commander strengthens ramparts. Define what information, influence, and interaction you allow to penetrate your consciousness. Each opinion, each attempt at persuasion is a reconnaissance mission. Assess the sender, evaluate the intent, and determine whether it serves your sovereignty or erodes it. Identify the infiltrator early. Manipulators do not reveal themselves with banners. They whisper subtly, sow doubt, exaggerate small errors, or praise selectively to build dependency. Envy-driven individuals measure your accomplishments not with admiration but with covert resistance, subtle obstruction, or passive-aggressive undermining. Learn to recognize patterns, repeated inconsistencies, and emotional triggers they exploit. Treat these signs as signals on a battlefield map, charting safe routes for thought and action while avoiding traps designed to ensnare your judgment. Maintain unwavering clarity of purpose. A throne cannot be defended if the ruler is distracted. A mind scattered by petty influence cedes power before the battle even begins. Use rituals to center focus. Review daily interactions, reflect on motivations, and reaffirm strategic priorities. When disagreement arises, handle it like a seasoned commander. In a meeting, if a colleague challenges your plan with veiled criticism, respond calmly. Redirect attention to the objective and reaffirm boundaries without aggression. Observe silently, note intent, and adjust engagement to neutralize potential disruption. Build routines that strengthen sovereignty, journal insights, plan actions with foresight, and enforce mental discipline rigorously. Each thought allowed to dominate unchallenged is a potential breach, a weak point adversaries can exploit. Language matters. Weak. I hope they mean well. Strong. I assess their intent. I act accordingly. Weak. Maybe I overreacted. Strong. I recognize patterns. I respond decisively. Establish rules for engagement with your mind. Allow only what serves purpose. Discard distractions swiftly and do not linger on provocations. Like a general surveying the terrain before battle, observe, anticipate, and position yourself advantageously. The cost of negligence is high. Misjudged motives lead to lost influence, wasted effort, and emotional exhaustion. The reward of vigilance is profound: clarity, control, and the freedom to act decisively. Repeat the principle daily, internalize it as a shield and a sword, and let it guide interactions, decisions, and reflections. Stand resolute against subtle attacks, maintain the integrity of your cognitive domain, and let no one erode your authority from within. Solidify your throne with discipline and foresight, and reinforce it with a mantra that centers purpose and fortifies resolve. I command my mind. I am unshakable. Every morning is a battlefield, and how you marshal your thoughts and energy determines the outcome of every engagement that follows. Rise with the mindset of a commander, inspecting the terrain before the clash begins. Ritualize awareness. Take time to survey your mental and emotional landscape, noting where vulnerabilities may lie, where lingering doubts or distractions could be exploited. Anticipate manipulations before they appear. Recognize that subtle provocations, gossip, and indirect pressures are weapons deployed by the cunning. Guard your energy as armor. It is the shield that preserves clarity and focus. Emotional depletion is a vulnerability that the manipulative exploit, draining attention with complaints, indirect challenges, or petty disputes. Conserve strength through intentional routines, meditation, journaling, or quiet reflection, to sharpen perception and fortify resilience. Strategic forecasting is your map to navigate the day. Visualize encounters as a general would on a battlefield, noting potential allies, neutral actors, and those whose motives are opaque or self-serving. Plan engagements deliberately, determining where to invest effort, when to observe silently, and when to assert presence decisively. When confronted with subtle resistance, handle it like disciplined leadership. If a colleague questions your proposal with a tone of veiled derision, respond with calm authority. Clarify your reasoning and redirect focus to the objective without escalating tension. Weak. I hope they understand my intent. Strong. I communicate clearly. I do not concede control over perception. Weak. Maybe I misread their tone. Strong. I assess behavior. I act with foresight. Each morning is a rehearsal for vigilance. Practice detecting hidden threats, calibrate responses, and reinforce boundaries before external pressures accumulate. Treat conversations as maneuvers on a chessboard, where missteps can compromise position and strategic advantage. Protect your mental position by filtering inputs consciously, refusing to engage with provocations that do not merit attention, and affirming priorities that align with long-term goals. Establish morning rituals as strategic pre-battle exercises. Review objectives, reaffirm focus, and recognize the social landscape with clarity. Let discipline dictate action, not reaction. Let observation precede response. In this way, the day begins under your command, and manipulative or envious actors encounter an unshakable presence. Maintain momentum by reinforcing energy, vigilance, and purpose at every encounter, using calm judgment to neutralize interference without needless confrontation. Your focus is the spear, your awareness is the shield. Together, they protect your sovereignty and guide every decision. End each morning with a declaration that cements readiness and command. I begin in control, I conquer the day. Silence is the deadliest weapon in the arsenal of the prudent. Action without understanding is vulnerability, while stillness breeds dominance. When facing manipulative or envy-driven individuals, your restraint is the shield that protects the mind and the throne. Observe before acting. Every repeated phrase, every veiled criticism, every subtle insinuation is a signal. The manipulator reveals intentions through pattern, not confession. Your silence functions as reconnaissance, allowing motives to surface naturally while conserving strength. Reserve judgment. Impatience or impulsive rebuttals are the traps into which the weak fall. By withholding immediate response, you deny manipulators the emotional leverage they seek, neutralizing efforts to provoke, distract, or destabilize. Each pause in speech, each moment of calm observation, accumulates intelligence that rivals any overt confrontation. Strategic stillness is not passivity, it is deliberate preparation. When a colleague attempts to undermine your proposal through insinuation, remain quiet, note inconsistencies, and respond only with precise, measured reasoning once patterns are clear. Weak, I must clarify immediately. Strong, I assess before I act. The pattern informs the counter. Psychological superiority arises from this disciplined restraint. As you observe silently, you transform information into insight, insight into strategy, and strategy into decisive advantage. Energy is preserved for decisive moves rather than wasted on unnecessary skirmishes. Silence signals confidence and authority. It communicates control over self and situation simultaneously. Treat verbal exchanges as chess pieces, each word a potential threat or opportunity, and move only when position and timing align. The patient observer detects hidden agendas, aligns resources, and anticipates reactions without revealing intentions prematurely. Quiet vigilance ensures that manipulative tactics fail against an unshakable mind. In every interaction, let the stillness of your presence dictate tempo and force others to reveal truth through their own overextension. Build the habit of deliberate inaction. Pause, record, analyze, and respond only when clarity emerges. Master the art of using silence as a weapon, and the battlefield of human interaction bends to your command without the need for overt aggression. End this practice with a personal affirmation of power. I command through stillness. I conquer without words. The first duty of a leader is to preserve the throne of the mind. Indecision allows predators to gather strength at your expense. Recognize the threshold where tolerance becomes vulnerability. Identify repeated behaviors that drain energy, distort focus, or erode confidence. Observe interactions with clarity. Habitual criticism, sabotage, or covert manipulation are signals that the relationship has crossed into harmful territory. Decisive removal is not cruelty, it is strategy. Act methodically, severing ties in a manner that prevents emotional entanglement and preserves dignity. Hesitation grants the manipulator leverage, enabling continued interference and subtle exploitation. Plan each step, reduce access to sensitive information, limit engagement, and disengage publicly or privately depending on the context. In a professional setting, a colleague consistently undermining your proposals requires structured boundaries, documentation of interactions, and, if necessary, formal separation from projects or teams. Weak, I hope they change. Strong, I remove influence before it threatens my position. Long-term consequences favor the vigilant. Each eliminated toxic influence preserves mental clarity, strengthens decision-making, and safeguards opportunities for growth. By removing those who would sap your resources, you protect the integrity of your strategic vision. This process reinforces authority, signals competence to allies, and prevents future erosion of power. Apply this practice consistently. Monitor 4 patterns, act with precision, and prioritize sustainability over short-term discomfort. The act of elimination is a tactical exercise in preserving sovereignty, not an emotional reaction. Each removed threat sharpens judgment, reinforces discipline, and demonstrates to yourself and others that your throne cannot be compromised. Understand that every human relationship carries potential for influence, both constructive and destructive. Discern carefully and act without hesitation when the scales tip toward harm. Maintain composure and respect. Even in removal, do not compromise ethics or provoke unnecessary conflict. End this principle with a personal affirmation of unwavering authority. I serve what threatens me, I command my realm. Command is not granted by words alone. It is perceived in presence, in the steadiness of action, in the subtle rhythm of authority that cannot be ignored. Stand as a throne in motion, a sentinel whose gaze and posture declare limits before they are tested. Controlled presence is your first weapon. Speak deliberately, act with intent. Let your timing communicate discipline and awareness. Each movement, each pause, signals to the observer that attempts to manipulate or destabilize will fail. Invisible boundaries operate like the walls of a fortress, unmarked yet impenetrable. Dangerous individuals probe constantly, searching for weakness or inconsistency. Respond not with confrontation, but with a calibrated demonstration of expectation. Assign space, allocate attention. Enforce social rules without drawing attention to the enforcement. Command through observation as a predator surveys its territory. Every glance, every measured note of engagement communicates dominance without overt assertion. In a meeting, when a colleague interrupts or derails discussion, remain composed. Redirect the conversation efficiently and let silence punctuate your authority. Weak, please wait your turn. Strong, I will address this at the appropriate moment. Your awareness itself is deterrence. Eyes that notice, ears that record, a mind that calculates in quiet motion, establish an aura that discourages exploitation. Practice this consistently. Regulate tone, maintain posture, control gestures, and let your calm scrutiny become your standard. Those who would overstep, hesitate before the invisible line you maintain, recognizing that subtlety wields more power than aggression. Integrate this into every interaction. Each conversation becomes an exercise in strategic restraint, each engagement a battlefield in which you hold the high ground without exposing vulnerability. Remember that authority is not won through loudness, but through measured, intentional presence that signals competence, confidence, and the refusal to yield. Close every encounter knowing your throne is unshakable, that your boundaries are understood before they are challenged, and that influence is exercised without submission. Anchor this principle in your daily conduct and repeat it as your guiding mantra. I command without yielding. I am the unbroken throne. Preparation is your deadliest weapon. Strike begins long before the visible battle unfolds. Envision yourself as a predator in silence, stalking potential threats within your environment. Predictive strategy requires you to map the intentions of those around you with precision, noting patterns, deviations, and subtle manipulations before they manifest. Each observation is a reconnaissance mission. Anticipate moves, preempt sabotage, and remain 3 steps ahead. Non-emotional calculation is your armor. Respond without visible aggression, letting your actions or deliberate inaction signal dominance and restraint simultaneously. In a boardroom, when a colleague attempts to undermine your project, acknowledge the interruption calmly, redirect the focus without confrontation, and process the risk internally before acting. Strategic patience transforms waiting into power. Mental preparation ensures that when engagement becomes necessary, your response is swift, decisive, and uncontested. Consider each interaction as a chessboard. Every word, gesture, and reaction is a piece moved with intent. Silence is a tool as sharp as any blade. Observing without immediate retaliation preserves reputation, while weakening the adversary's leverage. Establish mental contingencies. If a peer spreads misinformation, contain your reaction, document the event, and plan the subtle countermeasures. Weak. I am upset by your behavior. Strong. Noted. Adjustments will follow. Execute decisively when the moment aligns with strategic advantage, not emotion. This approach allows threats to neutralize themselves through your composed vigilance. Each calculated pause, each deliberate action, builds an aura of untouchable authority that discourages further transgression. Your mind becomes a fortress, where every scenario has been considered, every move anticipated. Develop this discipline daily. Rehearse responses, refine predictions, and strengthen your capacity to act without hesitation when circumstances demand. Let every observation, every internal calculation, and every controlled engagement reinforce your dominance. Adopt this mindset as your guiding principle. Strike within, command without, remain untouchable. Engage each encounter as a hunter observes prey, attuned to every twitch, hesitation, and signal. Learn from danger. Manipulators and saboteurs act as mirrors, reflecting weaknesses, testing your reflexes, and sharpening your strategic instincts. Controlled provocation becomes your training ground. Push boundaries subtly, assess reactions, and understand motives without exposing yourself to unnecessary harm. In a team setting, when a colleague attempts to overstep, respond with calm firmness. Redirect the conversation, observe the response, and absorb lessons without visible conflict. Adaptive aggression transforms confrontation into leverage, converts tension into insight, using every challenge to refine your decision-making and resilience. Treat psychological discomfort as a stimulus for growth, not as a threat. Recognize that aggression is not chaos, it is directed energy, channeled to maintain dominance while minimizing risk. Track patterns over time, noting which individuals seek to manipulate, intimidate, or provoke. Every interaction becomes a rehearsal for higher stakes, a controlled simulation where you test your instincts against deception. Weak. I don't like how you're behaving. Strong. I see your approach. Adjustments are noted. Observe quietly, respond deliberately, and internalize each encounter. Use failures as lessons, successes as reinforcement. Each strategic observation strengthens the mind like sharpening a blade. The predator mindset does not seek harm, but awareness, turning potential threats into opportunities for personal evolution. Let each provocation teach patience, vigilance, and controlled assertiveness. Master this dynamic. Every wolf you face feeds your own capacity for strategy, decision, and resilience. Harness your competitive instincts to transform adversity into preparation, tension into mastery, and observation into power. Embrace encounters as practical training, and let each test leave you sharper, calmer, and more assured. Your mind becomes a forge where every trial tempers resolve, every interaction polishes discernment, and every threat enhances your agility. Internalize this principle daily, converting every challenge into a tool for growth, every provocation into a stepping stone toward mastery. Stand undeterred, disciplined, and perceptive, letting no manipulator disrupt your equilibrium. Adopt this guiding mantra. I feed my instincts, I sharpen my mind, I remain untouchable. Life unfolds like a chessboard, each individual a piece, with defined capabilities, strengths, and limitations. Map relationships meticulously, noting allies who advance your agenda, neutral parties who can be swayed, and dangerous players who operate from envy or malice. Track these patterns over time, observing cycles of behavior that reveal intentions before words are spoken. Predict behavioral patterns by studying consistency. Envy-driven colleagues react similarly under pressure. Manipulators test boundaries repeatedly. Anticipate these moves as a grandmaster. Foresees threats across multiple turns, positioning yourself to exploit openings and avoid traps. Positioning over reaction is the keystone of strategic mastery. Control your environment so others respond to your actions rather than dictating your responses. In a recent scenario, when a peer challenged your proposal publicly, you maintained composure, reframed the discussion, and allowed evidence and logic to guide the outcome, asserting dominance. Without aggression. Weak, I disagree, you're wrong. Strong, observe the facts, then adjust accordingly. Force your opponents to expend energy reacting, not initiating, while maintaining calm command. Every decision should consider both immediate and downstream consequences, shaping the landscape subtly yet decisively. Visualize the board before moving. Anticipate not only the next step, but the sequence of possibilities that follow. Adapt strategies dynamically, adjusting to emergent threats without betraying composure. Preserve influence by staying several moves ahead, employing both restraint and foresight to ensure that every action strengthens position. Let analysis guide judgment. Emotion clouds perception and exposes vulnerability. Maintain clarity of vision, balancing aggression with patience, insight with timing. Recognize that in life, as on the chessboard, patience often yields control more effectively than impulse. Use interactions as reconnaissance, gathering intelligence while protecting personal resources. Translate observation into action, converting insight into strategic advantage, cultivating awareness that transforms unpredictability into opportunity. This disciplined approach minimizes risk while maximizing influence, empowering you to navigate complex social terrains with authority. Reinforce daily. Map, predict, position, and execute with precision. Stand unmoved, vigilant, and calculating, mastering the rhythm of engagement. Adopt this mantra. I see all moves, I command the board, I am unassailable. Discipline is the armor that shields the mind from the corrosive influence of others. Begin each day with deliberate structure, establishing rituals that fortify resolve and channel focus. Mental conditioning is the backbone of resilience. Rehearse composure under provocation, recognize envy without reacting, and train thought patterns to resist manipulation. When a colleague attempted to bait you into public criticism, you absorbed the attack, reframed the narrative calmly, and allowed evidence to carry authority, demonstrating command without surrendering emotional ground. Routine serves as a shield, limiting exposure to unpredictable disruptions and minimizing openings for manipulative interference. Define morning and evening practices, schedule reflection, and enforce boundaries around tasks and interactions. Self-mastery is the ultimate defense. A strong inner core ensures that external turbulence cannot dictate behavior. Cultivate awareness of internal triggers and maintain consistent responses to provocation, converting potential weakness into strategic strength. Reinforce discipline through repetition, meditation, focused work sessions, and structured evaluation of daily choices. Build psychological resilience. Envision the mind as a fortress, each ritual brick added to fortify walls against intrusion, each consistent action reinforcing the gate. Guard against erosion of control by external pressures. When envy or manipulation surfaces, respond with measured clarity, not impulsive reaction. Transform every challenge into practice for mastery, letting calm judgment dictate engagement. Weak, I feel attacked, I must respond. Strong, observe intent, act with precision. Treat the pace day as a campaign, each task a strategic maneuver, each decision an opportunity to strengthen command. Anticipate emotional ambushes and enforce limits proactively, preventing threats from gaining traction. Consistency in habits generates psychological authority that others recognize and cannot easily penetrate. Maintain vigilance without obsession, awareness without paranoia. The disciplined mind is impenetrable yet agile, capable of adapting while remaining unshaken. Daily rituals become both sword and shield, cutting through distraction and fending off manipulation. Let repetition ingrain mastery into instinct, ensuring that your actions emerge from strategy, not impulse. Reinforce mental and emotional fortitude continuously, preserving sovereignty of thought and clarity of purpose. Command your schedule, fortify your routines, and anchor your focus relentlessly. Adopt this mantra. I am the fortress. Discipline is my shield. I am unbreakable. Ascend the throne of your mind and establish a presence that is untouchable, unshakable, and sovereign. Begin by constructing an invisible fortress, a personal aura of calm authority that signals strength without aggression, deterring attempts at manipulation before they arise. Every interaction becomes a maneuver, every word a strategic placement on the board of influence. Psychological immunity is forged through consistent self-command. Envy-driven or manipulative individuals recognize your steadiness and find their tactics impotent against an unyielding core. Do not react to provocation or flattery. Observe, absorb, and choose deliberate responses that reinforce your internal sovereignty. Silent sovereignty is the final ascent. Command respect without announcing authority. Influence outcomes through presence and insight rather than force. When a peer attempted to undermine your decision in a team setting, you maintained composure, reframed the discussion with clear reasoning, and allowed your consistent performance to enforce your position, demonstrating leadership without confrontation. Reinforce this state through daily reflection, controlled routines, and strategic detachment from emotional triggers, ensuring that external turbulence cannot penetrate your inner citadel. Protect your attention and energy as a monarch guards the crown. Allocate resources to growth and clarity, not to reactions or resentments. Build habits that solidify mastery, regular evaluation of goals, structured environments that minimize unpredictability, and mental rehearsals of potential challenges. Recognize that true power resides in perception, yet is earned through disciplined action and unwavering adherence to principles. Avoid entanglement with those who seek to destabilize or manipulate. Observe patterns, maintain distance, and respond only with controlled influence. Use your presence to set the terms of engagement. Let others act within the constraints you silently establish. Weak. I must assert myself to be respected. Strong. I command without speaking, I influence without enforcing. Allow mastery of self to radiate outward, making opposition ineffective and envy irrelevant. Treat every decision as a calculated move, every boundary as a fortified wall, every ritual as reinforcement of authority. Internalize the mindset of the untouchable, steady, deliberate, and impervious to coercion. Let your actions, consistency, and discipline project a throne that cannot be challenged, a fortress that cannot be breached, and an influence that commands naturally. Carry this presence into every interaction, every environment, every choice. Adopt this mantra: I am the throne, unshakable, unyielding, untouchable. All power resides in the mind that refuses to be swayed. Mastery begins when observation, discipline, and action are fused into a seamless strategy. Visualize your life as a battlefield where each encounter, conversation, and decision is a maneuver on the chessboard of influence. Integrated mastery demands constant awareness, monitor intentions, assess patterns, and respond with precision rather than impulse. Build routines that reinforce focus, sharpen judgment, and conserve energy. These rituals act as armor, shielding you from attempts at manipulation. Recognize the three types of individuals who drain authority: the envious, the manipulative, and the disruptive. Each seeks to destabilize equilibrium, yet when your core is fortified through relentless self-command, their influence evaporates. High-stakes victory is achieved not through confrontation, but through avoidance and strategic positioning. Declining engagement with toxic forces amplifies clarity, reinforces autonomy, and enhances long-term influence. Treat every relationship as a calculated placement on the board. Choose allies whose presence aligns with principles and objectives, and maintain distance from those who threaten stability. Silent observation reveals intent before action is necessary, allowing preemptive adjustments without visible conflict. In team scenarios, when a colleague attempted to undermine your plan by questioning competence, you maintained composure, reframed the discussion around shared objectives, and allowed consistent performance to validate authority, exemplifying leadership without aggression. Reinforce this sovereignty with disciplined reflection. Review daily decisions, evaluate interactions, and refine strategies to remain ahead of potential disruptions. Establish an eternal throne by internalizing the notion that influence is earned through consistent, principled behavior rather than coercion or dominance. Strengthen psychological immunity by rehearsing scenarios that previously triggered emotional reaction, replacing instinct with deliberate control. Construct an invisible fortress of calm authority, where presence alone commands respect and deters interference. Each action, thought, and habit becomes a brick in this fortress, rendering external challenges impotent. Weak. I must assert dominance to protect myself. Strong. I command without declaration, I influence without imposition. Avoid distraction by gossip, unnecessary debate, or engagement with trivial conflicts. Every concession of attention is a weakening of your strategic position. Harness mental clarity to anticipate patterns of envy and manipulation, neutralizing potential threats before they manifest. Embed decision-making within a framework of self-mastery, deliberate, measured, and unshaken by external turbulence. Adopt rituals that integrate mind, body, and environment. Structured schedules, strategic planning, and reflective analysis cultivate continuous awareness and adaptability. Allow your consistency, discipline, and strategic silence to radiate authority. Let presence alone enforce boundaries and set expectations. Each interaction becomes a test of composure, each choice a reinforcement of sovereignty, and every habit a reinforcement of the throne you occupy within yourself. True autonomy emerges when external influences lose their power to provoke, distract, or destabilize. You become untouchable in thought, action, and perception. The convergence of integrated mastery, high-stakes victory, and the eternal throne represents the apex of psychological sovereignty, a state in which respect is automatic, influence is inherent, and freedom is unwavering. Internalize every ritual, refine every strategy, and cultivate a presence that cannot be undermined. Walk through life as if the board is always under your control, the battlefield mapped, and the throne secured within. Command yourself fully, for no external agent can dethrone what is earned internally. Let this final form guide every decision, every interaction, and every boundary. I am sovereign, untouchable, eternal. Your mind is the throne from which all influence radiates. Defend it with vigilance and unwavering presence. Treat each day as a battlefield where observation, reflection, and deliberate action form your armor. Identify those who seek to destabilize you, the envious who covet, the manipulative who twist, and the disruptive who distract. Recognize their patterns without attachment, measure their intent, and disengage strategically. Daily enforcement is your ritual. Dedicate time to monitor interactions, note behaviors, and reinforce boundaries. Let this practice become as automatic as breathing. Establish a mental perimeter where intrusion is noticed instantly and addressed, without unnecessary confrontation. When a colleague attempted to undermine your project by spreading doubt, you responded with composed facts, reaffirmed objectives, and allowed consistent execution to validate authority, demonstrating mastery without aggression. Cultivate psychological immunity. Repeated exposure to minor provocations, observed without reaction, strengthens calm, deterring those who feed on volatility. Silent sovereignty manifests when your presence alone commands respect. Let gestures, tone, and decisiveness convey authority without escalation. Language shapes perception. Weak. I hope they respect my boundaries. Strong. Boundaries are maintained, respect is commanded. Weak. I try to stay calm. Strong. Calm is my strategy. Integrate these practices into a daily cadence, making vigilance habitual, reflection systematic, and boundary enforcement non-negotiable. Each action reinforces the invisible fortress surrounding your mind, making intrusion costly for those who would test it. Master interactions, avoid toxic influence, and channel energy toward pursuits that strengthen independence and clarity. Influence emerges naturally when you do not yield to manipulation. Respect becomes inevitable when authority is exercised silently and consistently. Freedom is preserved through deliberate detachment from volatility, ensuring decisions are grounded in reason rather than emotion. Internalize the mantra as both shield and compass. I see through the masks. I endure the shadows. I am untouchable.